So first of all, thank you guys very much. Again, my name is Vince Tumbleson. I've been at Teespring for a little over 2 years now. I'll tell you a little bit more about my story in a second, but I want to introduce this handsome devil to all of you today. This is Scott Boulis, and you know, I believe that every Batman has a Robin, and today this is my Robin. Well, I'm fortunate enough that my Robin also happens to be Superman. So today, I'm really excited to present to you guys alongside Scott. We have some really cool stuff in store. I called this a fireside chat today. Why? Because I want to keep it casual. You know, we have fireside chats in the office all the time. I want this to be engaging, interacting. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of where we came from, because in order to talk about the future, I think it's very important to understand where we were and where we started, and to talk about how we got to where we are today. So before we get started, there are a couple things. First of all, raise your hand if you've learned at least one new thing today that you can take away and implement immediately. That's incredible. That's the goal of today. First of all, give yourselves a round of applause, because that's huge. Our goal for this speech and for everything is to do that. So if you can, take 3 seconds quickly. Either think about your one takeaway or write it down. Right? Think about that one takeaway or write it down.
Definitely write it down, especially if you plan on coming to the pub after. Try and write it down before that, please.
So today, you know, I want to give a few thank yous out, and I'm sorry to pull out my phone, but I want to make sure I do not forget anyone. So first and foremost, to our speakers, thank you so much for coming. I think that everybody who's spoken before me has done an incredible job, so round of applause for everybody who's spoken already. Next, I want to make sure to give Fred his shout out. He's done an incredible job as an MC today. Thank you, Fred. And to the Skyloft staff, you've done a fantastic job today, you know, whether it's serving us, hosting us, whatever. Thank you guys so much for setting up today. Round of applause for them. And I've been in London since Monday. This is my first time in Europe, and I was welcomed with open arms. So to the Fabberly team, I want to say thank you so much for having us here and for inviting us to speak. This has been an incredible opportunity, so thank you to the entire Fabberly team. There's somebody who's not here today. She helped out a ton with this presentation, from pulling data, creating some infographics, things like that. I want to give a shout out to Ali Shea. When she sees this recording, she'll know she literally has helped me out, whether it's on the webinars or with this today, and without her help, I couldn't be up here today speaking to all of you, sharing this. So thank you to Ali Shea, the TEESPRING data team, and everybody back home. We've already given ourselves a round of applause, but seriously, thank you guys so much for coming. This would be a really stupid event if I were talking to an empty room. Yeah, Scott might be used to that, but I know it means a lot to see everybody here. It's great to actually meet in person. In the digital age, meeting offline is one of the most important things that we can do. So coming together today, I hope that you guys have an opportunity to network afterwards, meet with one another, mingle with the speakers, each other, and the staff. So thank you so much for coming. And then last, but certainly not least, there was one person who put in hours upon hours upon hours upon hours upon hours to make this happen. If everyone could join me, if you could, in a round of applause and a standing ovation for Jessica. Thank you so much for everything you've done today. For the past few months, Jessica has literally poured her heart and soul into this, and we wouldn't be here today. You wouldn't have been able to hear these incredible speeches from people who've spoken before me without her. So Jessica, thank you so much. This has, in my opinion, been one of the smoothest conferences I've ever been at. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. Without further ado, we're going to get started. So what's our goal today? Well, as the Teespring Fabberly company, our goal is to provide the information and resources that you guys are going to need to succeed. Specifically today, in my opinion, we've achieved our goal. Everybody had their one main takeaway for today. And I think that's one of the most important things when you're trying to tackle all this information. It's like drinking from a fire hose. Focus on that one thing you're going to implement, master it, and move on from there. We have a lot of information for you guys today, and I know we're short on time, so there may be some times where we jump ahead, we speak quickly, whatever. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. If you want to, just write down your questions, and we'll get back to it, and we'll talk about it after when all the speakers are up front. I want to talk a little bit about where it all began, where Teespring came from, how it started. Many of you may have heard this story, but to me it's one of the most compelling stories of how a business has began that I've ever heard, and I'm fortunate to be a part of that. There was a bar in Providence, there was a pub that shut down, and the entire community was abuzz about it. When this pub shut down, all of Providence was talking about it. It was in the news. It was on college campuses. This was a bar that had ingrained its way into many different communities, specifically into the Brown University community, where Walker Williams and Evan Stites Clayton were both studying. I was fortunate enough to be studying there as well, alongside them. When the bar shut down, Walker and Evan got together and they said, there's something we have to do. There's all this passion. How can we provide the community with something that's going to resonate with them? And they decided, you know what, we're going to get some t-shirts. But man, back in 2011, it was tough to source some t-shirts. You had to figure out exactly how many shirts you were going to need, what sizes you were going to have. You usually had to charge more than you wanted to because you were going to have some stock left over. And they said that that didn't work. So they set up this page here. The website is freefishco.com, and they collected pre-orders. And they said, if 200 people pledge to buy this shirt, we will get them printed. That's a novel idea right there. They went out and they said they'll get them professionally printed. So the next thing they did, they set up a Facebook page, Free Fish Co. Look at that, it's got 138 likes. Wouldn't you know it? So they set up this Facebook page, right? And this was their post. If we can get 200 people to pledge to buy these shirts, we're going to get these professionally printed. That's fantastic. They reached 200 pledges. They said they'll be buying the shirts. They'll be fulfilling them. They already had the money. They profited. That was fantastic, right? So they got the shirts in, and they handed them out. And they didn't think this is a great idea. They thought, cool, we serve the community, we made a couple of bucks on the side. Well, a couple weeks later, people kept approaching them, say, hey guys, can you set up something similar for me? Can you set up a page for my band, for my group, for my organization? You know, we can't afford to buy these shirts, but I think people would love them. And that's when they realized they may be onto something. Well, Walker and Evan had created a company earlier, and they went to an advisor that they had, and the short of the long is the three of them got lunch, Walker, Evan, and this investor, sat down, drew it up on a napkin, and that day, a check was written, and that's when Teespring was started, in the spring of 2011. So how Scott and I got started at Teespring.
So I know that we've talked about golf a lot today, and I'm sure you didn't expect that, but this is another story about golf, so I'm sorry. So fast forward to 2012, there's a gentleman named Matt, and Matt is a very close friend of mine. He has been for many years. He's the first employee at Teespring, after Walker, Evan, and the angel investor. So Matt was working at the golf course that I played at every day in the summer. Time after time, he would tell me about this idea. And to be honest, I could not wrap my head around it. I've never heard anything like it. And I'm sure how many of you guys have experienced or tried to explain Fabrily or Teespring to anybody, and they just don't understand how it works. And it's still,
I've had that
to
experience.
me, I mean, I still struggle because it's very tough to explain. So over time, you know, he keeps telling me, and I've never heard of anybody speak about something so passionately and something they cared about. And his pitch was way different than it is today, but it was related around fundraising, college campuses. How do we get tees to these organizations that need them the most and usually buy in bulk, but want a good cost and want them right away and don't want to deal with inventory? That part I understood. So I'm working at a part-time internship, and I'm a very business-driven person. I love numbers. I love watching what you guys do on our platform and what you're creating with your own businesses. So my long-term goal was to go back to school and to eventually, you know, further my accounting education and stay in that field. While looking for a part-time job, I came across Teespring, and it resonated in my mind because I remember Matt telling me about it. So I gave him a call. Hey, I just applied for a job at Teespring. Is there anything else I should send you? He said, oh, great. I'm actually doing the hiring. Why don't you come in right now? I said, I mean, I have a job. I can't come in right now. Maybe next week. He goes, perfect. Come in Monday. This was a Thursday. Monday, I come in. It's like I just started. He hired me there. It's like if there's 15 people, I joined Bridget and Vince, who were already there. And once he explained everything to me and showed me what they were doing, I grew so passionate about it with Matt. He kind of wrote me into what he was pitching to everybody. And it was like a whole new thing. It's like something I've never experienced. I have goosebumps right now talking about it. But I wasn't even familiar with the startup scene in general. I was more, you know, corporate business. That's what I was familiar with. So something like this had really, really grabbed my attention. So Monday I had started. I had quit my internship and haven't gone back to school because I'm obsessed with Teespring. So.
Yeah, so, you know, when Scott joined the team, that was really awesome. And we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of where we were then and what got us there. But Scott said a couple of things. He was entrepreneurial, like everybody in this room. He enjoyed numbers, like you need to if you're in this room. And those are a bunch of things that help make him successful. My path to Teespring was slightly different. Like I said, I was at school with Walker and Evan when they first sold these free Fishco t-shirts. And I knew that Teespring existed. However, it wasn't very big. And in the fall of 2012, a couple of friends and I, we were playing Arjun's alma mater in football, American football, and we decided we were going to create some t-shirts. And we were going to sell some t-shirts that said Brown State. And it resonated with the community. It was something that was very passionate. And my buddies were doing it, and they were selling some shirts. They sold about 100 t-shirts, which was really good. That was awesome on the campus. But they did it the old-fashioned way. They were guessing. We were sitting there, and they basically said, Vince, you want to join us? You want to make some money? I said, absolutely, but if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right. I set up a Google form where I started collecting orders beforehand. I collected all the money when I could. I was projecting, hey, I think we're going to need, based on how many sales we're going to have now, we're going to need about 500 more shirts. So we had a professional photo shoot done with the t-shirts. We had 2 samples printed. And we created a Facebook group. And I don't know if you guys can all see this, but Saturday, September 22nd, 2012 was the game. I created a Facebook event. And this is key. In 2012, there was an event with 1,000 people attending and 1.5 thousand people who were invited. Every single time that I posted in this event, 2,500 people got a notification. And guess what? I made sure the link to order was in there. I was internet marketing before I even knew I was internet marketing, and I wasn't even paying for the traffic. How awesome is that? So we set this up. We ended up selling over 1,000 t-shirts. That is my first and maybe my only 1,000+ t-shirt campaign I've ever run. Fast forward a little bit later, a hurricane hit the East Coast in the United States, and this is my first Teespring campaign. It was a Hurricane Sandy relief fundraiser, and this is an important one to me. I reached out to Walker. I had some family that was affected by the hurricane. I said, hey, Walker, I'd love to do a fundraiser. Let's use your platform. I sold shirts a few months earlier, but I did it the old-fashioned way, and it was a pain in the butt. So we set this up, and Walker said, absolutely, we're going to make a full donation. We're going to make this happen, and he set it up. And I think it says a lot about a company that's strapped for cash. It's young, and they say, you know what, we're going to cut our margins, and we're going to go do something good. And I've known Walker for a number of years before this, but to see him do this for his business was something that really resonated with me. I ended up selling about 150 of these shirts. Walker had purchased 50 of them, so I didn't do such a good job marketing these, but we were still able to make a very hefty donation, and that's when I really got started in Teespring. So the following spring, I was looking for a job, and I was going to go work on Wall Street, and I said, hey, Walker, I'm going to go work on Wall Street, and he said, no, you're not. You're going to come work for me. If it doesn't work out, I'll hook you up with a job somewhere. Don't worry about it. Okay. That's a pretty compelling argument. So I joined him on board, and shortly thereafter, Scott joined us. And in our early stages, very similar to Fably, we were helping not-for-profits. We weren't solely for not-for-profits, but when you think about the model, we're trying to keep the cost low. It was a no-risk, no-cost platform. That sounds great for a not-for-profit. They don't have to pay anything, and they think they're going to raise a ton of money. Well, this was one of my very first campaigns that I worked with. It was for vascular biologists. As you can see, the design is very simple. And we realized that the not-for-profit niche was fantastic, and we kind of branched that off. But we realized there's got to be something more. So Scott, Matt, and myself had a daily routine that Scott will tell you about. And you guys may have been on the other side of some of these
And we're very sorry for that. So it was just us three, and we were, I guess, what you can consider a sales team, even though it didn't really work that way. And we had one rule each day. It was to reach out to at least 50 Facebook pages with at least 50,000 likes. And obviously now, for those of you who know, that's not that much with organic reach being cut. But at the time, it could get you pretty far. So we'd reach out to these pages, and we had a little bit of luck. Every now and then, we'd land a pretty big page, and it was a huge win for us. But more often than not, we either didn't get a response or, you know, I'm not interested, thank you anyway. But the most common one was, all caps, please stop messaging all of my pages. So then we started brainstorming. I was like, what do you mean all of my pages? So I looked at the pages that I was reaching out to, and it was, I love dogs, I love fishing, I love whatever sports team. And we noticed that the same person was running these pages, and they might not have actually loved dogs or fishing or that sports team. They were really trying to monetize their niche. And once we picked up on that, that's when we really started getting moving.
Yeah, and we started noticing a few trends, and one of the first trends we picked up on is these email addresses would say media somewhere in it, at social media reach or at digital media or at marketer or something like that. I'm like, where the heck are we going to find more of these medias and marketers and things like that to help them, help their businesses grow, and also help our business grow. And we did just that. We stumbled upon it, and we uncovered the internet marketing space. And this was in August/September of 2014. 2013, rather, excuse me, 2013, and we haven't looked back since. This is where Scott and I really hit our niche within the Teespring community, because we were so passionate for the entrepreneurs that we've been working with, which is truly what you all are today. You are entrepreneurs, and I've heard the term internet marketer, and I definitely think that, yes, we are internet marketers in this room. However, to describe this as anything short of a business, I think would be a mistake on our part. We are building businesses today, and I know some people who've systemized these businesses in a manner where they practically work without them. So I think that's very important, and as we've heard from our speakers today, to get to that level of success, you need to treat this like a business, but you can do it, and that's what we're really excited about. So we realized that with these marketers, we saw our very first platform design. We call platform designs that scale across many niches. So this was the first platform design that I worked with. It was a gentleman who had a dogs page, and it says sleeps with Doxies. Just a cute little shirt. He was able to scale this every way till Sunday. Sleeps with Doxies, bulldogs, pugs, golden retrievers, German shepherds, cats, dogs, you name it. Crushed it with these shirts. And that's where we realized that scalability is important. That's a big takeaway. When you're coming up with these designs, scalability is important. And if you find a scalable design that resonates with a ton of audiences, you found a gold mine, and you want to scale quickly. So what brings us here today? We've received a lot of questions about this. You know, Teespring and Faberly, how do we come together? How did this transpire? Why are Scott, Bridget, and myself standing here today alongside the Faberly team? I'm sure many of you have read, obviously, we announced the acquisition back in January, but that's not when it all began. So I want to tell you a little bit about that. So the first time I found Faberly, I don't know if you guys know this, right? But when you're scrolling on Facebook, in your news feed, sometimes people can pay to send you a message, right? So one day I saw an ad, and it was for this t-shirt company, and I clicked on it, and I watched this video, and I said, oh, this is kind of neat. You know, they speak with a funny accent, but it reminds me of this company that I work at. And I watched the video, and this right here is Sarah, who loves safe cycling, and she wanted to raise some money in London, and I thought that was fantastic. And I was like, wow, this company reminds me of myself. This was back in March of 2014. So, you know, I found that, and I said, okay, cool. There's another company out there, great. And this was one of the first companies that we saw that was very similar to the Teespring model. So I'm kind of starting at the end, and I'm going to go back a little bit, but we always knew we were going to expand to Europe, but we did not know how. It wasn't as though one day we were like, you know what? We're going to acquire a company. We're going to go out and do that. No. It was a process. Well, that didn't work the way it was supposed to. That's okay. So it started out with some good experiences, right? So we realized that Faberly had some similar ideas, and this was way, way, way back March, April. And Scott can tell this story. This is one of my favorite stories, actually.
Unfortunately. So Vince and I were sitting around a table looking for ways to re-engage with different users, whether it be unsuccessful users or users that we hadn't spoken to in a little while. Whatever it might be, we wanted to really engage with them and get one message across. So we were thinking bigger picture. What does Nike do? What does everybody like that do? And just do it is Nike's expression. So in my head, I think of a question, because at the time, you know, questions were actually really popular and still are in your copy and everything. So I thought, do you Teespring? Because do you Teespring, Vince?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, so do I. So if you don't, it sparks a conversation, and then the other person can hopefully explain what it is. So I thought this was the best idea that I had ever come up with. So I ran to our marketing director. This was a Friday. I said, guys, can we please test this out? It would be like a campaign. Just get it going. Let's send it out to a specific set of users, and we'll see how it does. So the marketing director was away for the weekend, liked the idea, said, let's sit on it, let's discuss Monday and see what we can do. Monday morning, I come in to another email from Vince, and it's a picture of Kate from Faberly, who's not here today, but on her shirt, it says, do you Faberly? And my heart sunk down to my stomach. It was the worst thing I could have seen on a Monday morning.
But you know what? At the time, I mean, we didn't know it, but at the time, it was an indicator that we had the right thought processes going, and we were on the same page. We didn't know it, but we were on the same page. That was one of the first things, those similar ideas. We also interacted with some sellers and marketers who had experimented with both platforms, and that was something that, to us, was phenomenal. And again, these are conversations that Scott and I were typically having day to day, but we would talk with somebody and say, how was your experience at Fabry? They'd say, yeah, it was really great. You know, it's a different market. Europe is awesome. It's growing. It's a place I want to be. And it was never, they never came back and said we were treated unfairly. The quality was poor. My buyers were pissed off. It was always a very positive interaction. Again, these weren't sparking red flags that said, let's go acquire them. But when you put all the pieces together, it leads us in that direction. So we had this successful seller crossover, and these led to some friendly conversations. You know, there were some casual Facebook chats. One of the first experiences I had with somebody on the Fabry team is when Craig sent me a message just to say hello. Hey, you know, we really admire you guys. We like what you're doing. Keep up the good work. That was it. Just saying hey from the other side of the pond. And we noticed that there were so many cultural similarities and synergies between the two companies. And to us, that's the most important thing in the world. And the biggest thing here, I want to go back to this, is it was sometime last summer. It was late spring, early summer, and there was a webinar that Fabry had held. And the short of the long is at the end of the webinar, Adil had taken a question and answer session. And Scott and I were sitting here watching this webinar, and we were listening to what the CEO of this company had to say, what Adil was saying. And I remember sitting there thinking, he sounds just like Walker. And that's one of the highest compliments that I could give somebody in business, is that they're thinking the same way as the CEO of the company that I work for because I believe in the CEO. I have the utmost faith in our leadership team. And to hear somebody speak and remind me of him was one of the most powerful things that I've experienced at the time, because you know, to hear the way that he cared about the community, cared about the quality of his product, cared about the fact that what he was doing was changing people's lives and that it wasn't for the bottom line, was one of the most important things for me before we got to a phase where, you know, we were starting to talk about joining forces.
And to me, the biggest takeaway from that was that Fabry wasn't necessarily a competitor, but it was almost, they were running parallel in a whole nother market than we were. It was unbelievable. We've never really seen anything like it, or, you know, still to now.
Yeah, so as time went on, like I said, we knew we were going to expand into Europe, and we reached out to one another. It was like, hey, let's have a mastermind, kind of like we're doing today. It was, let's have two companies mastermind together. Where's the future of this industry going? Let's just talk, bounce ideas off one another. And we did that, and we started to realize that Fabry possessed some of the top market knowledge in the industry. They had some experts in the industry and some top talent. And we were actually, you know, we just had a conversation a little while ago with Carmen, and it was the first time that I met Carmen. She came over to say hello, and she's on the Fabry team, and she said that she was exchanging ideas with somebody from the TEESPRING team. And you know, they look to us as the older company who, you know, has all their processes in place and everything like that. And at the end of that conversation that she had with one of our team leaders, we were the company at TEESPRING that also walked away with some valuable knowledge. And that exchange of ideas, that cross-pollination, is what we foresee being one of the things that springs us all forward, and being able to exchange these ideas as we globalize. And so, you know, Craig has touched on this, but we knew the European market has incredible potential. It's the fastest growing B2C e-commerce market in the world. It's growing at roughly 20% year over year. And to me, that speaks volumes to what our potential is, what the people in this room can do as we move forward, and as people get more comfortable purchasing online, purchasing on their mobile devices, and everything like that. So eventually we had a bunch of conversations, and they led to, hey, we should join forces. And we welcome the Fabry family to our family with open arms, just as they did when I came out here. And so that's the backstory, why we're here today, and how we got together. And again, I think it's really important to share this information with all of you to understand why we're here, how we can move forward, and what we're going to do to help everybody in this room reach potential that they didn't think they could reach. So before we get into the must-dos, right, there are a couple things here. Now, I loved Chris Blair earlier. That was a great job making everybody stand up and do that. But he said a lot of fantastic things. And if you follow him, you can see mentality is very important, right? And there may be some people in this room asking these questions. Can I do this? Am I the right fit for this? What is it going to take to succeed, to get to the point where I'm the one speaking and I'm presenting all of my knowledge? So I want to show you guys a couple of stories. You know, first and foremost, you've seen a few stories today, whether it's Ronnie and Suhail sharing what they've done and how these platforms have changed their life, to Chris Blair talking about all the people that he's coached and the lives that he's changed with that, to Matt Stefanik talking about how he's worked alongside Chris and all the success they've had, to Arjun, who's sold millions and millions of dollars of product and remains to be one of the most successful marketers that our platforms have seen. That could be you, right? And I want to show you a couple of examples of people who've done this. So this gentleman, Will Shank, he was unemployed, right? He used to work at a high energy, high pressure sales role. And one day he decided that that wasn't the life he wanted to live anymore. And he was speaking to a friend, and this friend said, Will, check out this Teespring thing. Check out this online marketing, this internet marketing. He quit his job, tipped a few campaigns, and now he vacations monthly, he and his wife. I got the opportunity to meet Will down at an event in Orlando last year. One of the most humble, nicest guys you'd ever meet. I see a room full of people like that who quite literally have the opportunity to paint their future, to do whatever it is they want to do with our platforms helping you and allowing you the freedom to do so. And we want to talk about a few of the tips that we gave Will to get him started when he was early on his journey. This next one is Hung, yeah. So Hung, he was a college student, he was an engineer. He's the one. Raise your hand if you've seen a shirt that says, trust me, I'm an engineer. He has sold thousands and will continue to sell thousands of these shirts. And he stumbled into this. He didn't wake up one morning and say, oh, let's see what I could do.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite stories on Teespring because I think it speaks well to what we do now, and that's sell real passionate ideas and apparel to people that are looking for that. And this kind of slipped under the radar because he was selling so much to these engineers time after time, and we really didn't put two and two together that they were that passionate about what they were doing, and that's why it was selling so well. The community itself is amazing. Everyone's in there all the time, super active, but we really didn't put it together like the way it works right now.
This is one of the first occupation-related T-shirts that we saw, and now people are targeting occupations all the time. This engineer loves this, or this engineer lives here, this teacher loves this. We see it all the time, and this is one of the first ones to get that going. This is Mark Boulis. I apologize to Mark. I misspelled his last name on this presentation. But he's a college entrepreneur, and I wanted to include him in this slideshow because he's somebody who had zero experience. He learned from his roommate. We actually did an AMA with him a little bit earlier. It was about 3 weeks ago now. And Mark shared a bunch of his tips with us. But the biggest tip that he gave us was that anyone can do it. And how does he know? Because he could do it while balancing a girlfriend, not having any experience running a business, and going to college full time. He had very limited time, and he failed some 50 times before he actually hit his first home run. So, a lot of people have talked about perseverance is going to be important, taking action is going to be important, but Mark was able to do it, and I hope you're seeing the theme here. Whether it was somebody who spoke today or somebody that's up here, we could do it, and this is a room full of people that could do this together. I'm going to kind of skip through these next few, but this is JAYNE RYLON. She was an author, and she wrote books, and she just decided, you know what? She had a blog. She was going to write some books. Why not launch a T-shirt, see if I can make some money off of it? So she created a shirt that said, I read after dark. What a cute, catchy little phrase. She posted it and ended up selling a couple thousand shirts. Again, if you have the audience there or you can buy the audience, you can find success. Mark was somebody who launched his campaigns, and as he started scaling, he realized that his friends could help him and he could scale sooner. So he set up Demto Clothing, and he built a brand around this. And if you hit your niche over and over and over again, you're essentially building a brand. And there's somebody I know in this room who told me that his brother is doing some shirts, and he's essentially built a brand off of his Facebook page, and they trust him and they like him, and that was all built on Teespring. And that's the type of thing that this platform has the potential for. And then Liz used our platform as a fundraising opportunity. She raised over $40,000 for childhood cancer. And I think that is one of the most powerful things that we can still do is, as a community, give back. Whether or not you're a marketer or somebody who just has a passionate audience, or you have something that resonates with the community, the ability to give back is something that we believe in, and that's why we're here giving back, in some small way, giving as much information as we can to help you guys succeed. So, I want to talk about the Teespring mentality. And this is a little bit cheesy, but I'm from Wisconsin, so that's okay. So we had these questions. Can I do this? Yes, you can do this. Everybody in this room, as Chris Blair was saying earlier, everybody in here can do this. Is there anybody in this room who doesn't think that they can go home, implement something, and tip a campaign? Everybody in here can do this. Are you the right fit for this? Absolutely. Again, that's why you're here. You took action. You did something that many people were not able to do. You stepped forward today, came to this conference, and that's awesome. And what will it take? I say it takes action and attitude, and this is the stupidest thing in the world, but I was going to bed last night, and I knew I was going to come up here and talk a little bit today, and I said, what can I do to enhance my presentation? I said, well, smart people listen to podcasts. I'm going to listen to podcasts before I go to bed. So I put on a podcast, and as the podcast was wrapping up, I was kind of dozing off, and he closed up his podcast, and he said, action is the one thing it takes to succeed in business and in life. If you're somebody who's willing to take action, then this podcast is for you. And I was like, gosh darn it, he said something I'm going to use in my speech tomorrow. And sure enough, you hear it all the time. Taking massive action is the only way to succeed, especially in this industry. And we'll be able to talk a little bit more about one of our favorite catchphrases later. So you're about to see 14 different things pop up on this screen that we've identified as must-dos. This isn't all of them, but this is a good place to start. Now, I would recommend picking one of these and moving forward. As we go through these, I'm just going to let this pop up here, and then a little bit later, we'll come back to some of the other ones. But you'll be able to see this on the simulcast later. So I'll let everybody snap their photos. But we're going to go through a few of these, talk about how they can help your campaigns, what you can do to tip more campaigns, and increase your ROI. Cool. You'll be able to see, I'm going to go through all these individually, and if they're not, they're going to be in a slide at the end. You'll be able to take another picture then. So the first thing we have, messaging your buyers, right? Message your buyers early and often. Whenever you send a message to your buyers, it converts 5 times as well. I repeat that, 5 times as well as traffic that comes in from another source. So message your buyers. We've seen that repeat buyers make up over 35% of all of our sales. And whenever you launch a new shirt, that's a great time to message your buyers. Arjun mentioned it a little bit earlier. Reach out to them, connect with them, build a brand. They're very excited about the shirt that they just received. And I was down at Traffic and Conversions last week, and one of the things they talked about are the rushes of a purchase. Whether it's the dopamine rush, the serotonin rush, the neurotransmitters that are actually going off when you receive and open this package you've been waiting for so long, and now you got it. Hit them with an email. Say, hey, how'd you like that? Here's another one. They're in the perfect mode to be buying another t-shirt. And then, we did just revamp our messaging tool. And one of the things I want to point out here, one of the benefits of our integration is that we're now able to help the Fabry team in different ways, and they're able to help us. And so they're going to be coming out with a messaging buyers tool, and one of the things is we're going to be able to help them build that. And so this integration, this joining of forces, has been extremely powerful when it comes to developing these platforms as we move forward into the future. And it just says under there, we revamped our messaging. That's all. We've made it cleaner, sleeker, nicer, and we have tremendous open rates because the Teespring email has a lot of trust from the buyers. Set up retargeting. This is probably the most important thing that you can do once you've mastered all of the basics. Start learning it now, because retargeting is the future of digital media buying. What I mean by that is that when you're dropping this pixel, right? So for those who don't understand retargeting, I'm going to walk you through it in a 3-step process. Essentially, you're dropping a pixel on a visitor, right? And that pixel follows you around. So if anyone has ever checked out their own Teespring campaign, for example, they'll see that it follows them around the internet. So the first thing that happens is we drop this cookie on you. Then, media purchasing or retargeting platforms serve content, which in our instance is the Teespring URL, to the visitor across the web. So when you're on another website, this third-party platform is actually buying the space to show this content to you. Finally, the retargeted ads, they convert anywhere from 2 to 20 times more than direct marketing ads. Why? Because it's something they've already seen before. And again, this is something that Arjun pointed out. I strongly encourage everybody to go home and do some research on retargeting. Google Retargeting 101. There are some great resources out there that explain how it works. There are some great companies out there that you can work alongside. Teespring automatically retargets for you. We take care of that. It's a free service that we offer because we think it's important to bring them back and that's a free service that we offer to you. So Teespring automatically does the retargeting, and retargeting has gone up. I believe it is now, it's driving, I believe, over 10% of our sales. So the retargeting is giving a 10% boost to each and every one of you. And like I said, for more info, research Retargeting 101. Check your analytics. I was having a conversation with somebody a little bit earlier, and they were saying that they were speaking with somebody who sells Teespring campaigns, and they've never checked their analytics. How many people are familiar with how analytics work, whether it's Google Analytics or Teespring or anything like that? Raise your hand if you're familiar with that. Great. So for those of you who aren't, I strongly recommend you take a peek into these. There's some very powerful information that can help you spend your money more wisely as you move forward into the future. So if you look at some of this information that we have here, we're providing you with orders placed, visitors, conversion rates, things like that. Valuable information to tell you basically whether or not your marketing dollars are being spent wisely. As we move over, I'm sorry that's not more clear, but what we're showing here is the referrer that is sending them to this. So what you can do is you can set up those URLs that were mentioned earlier and see exactly which ad in which demographic is sending this visitor to your page. And the ones that are converting well, you can pump more ad spend into. And you can kill the ones that just aren't working for you. And with this, you're also going to be able to see things like hours of the day, what's converting well. Now, we don't necessarily recommend turning your ads on and off. We haven't seen any tremendous differences in doing so. In fact, we've seen better results in just letting your ads run for 24 hours. However, if you do want to see when to launch your campaign, when to post, when to make sure that your ad is approved by, this is great data for you. And we found that it's kind of in that early afternoon for the West Coast and the evening for the East Coast of the US, that is. And I know that Craig has some awesome information and some data on that for the EU and for Europe.
And yeah, the one thing I want to add about checking stuff like this is there's a lot of stuff in every community about best practices and when to launch campaigns, how to check this data. But it's really important to still check it yourself because it could be different niche to niche.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If you learn your niche just like this, it could perform completely different than what everyone else suggests. So it's still really important.
Yeah, and a final thing. So this is a really, really important one. I actually pulled this from a live campaign right now, but as you can see, the canvas ring spun tee is doing very, very well. The hoodies is the second best selling option on this design. There are a couple ways you could use this information. Number one, as we were talking about, it's different temperatures in different parts of the world right now. You can set up a URL that shows the hoodie to an audience where hoodies are selling better, where it's colder, where it's a different climate, and then show the t-shirts to people who live in warmer climates. You can also switch that so that men are seeing a unisex tee and female buyers are seeing a ladies tee if you're trying to sell a shirt that they would be purchasing for themselves. You can also set this up, for example, hey, did you forget to buy this? Or, hey, we noticed that you saw the black tee. Have you checked out the navy one? Check out the royal blue one. Check them all out here. And this is great messaging for retargeting that engages with the person on the other side of the screen, with your potential buyer.
It's also important to note that not everybody is familiar with retargeting. So your buyers might not know that it came from you. So they see that and they say, wow, how did they know that? I'm really interested now. I mean, I had no idea about retargeting. Stuff follows you around the internet until I started working here and took a deeper dive into it. But
yeah. And for some people, that's a good thing. For other people, we were talking about earlier, why can't we just hit name campaigns? A lot of people are weirded out by that, but come on, Joe Blogs. Like, it's okay. We have your data. We're not going to do anything bad with it. We just want to serve you something you like. Is that okay? Can we just give you something that you want? Is that so much to ask for? So another tip that we have, set up your storefronts and your cross-sells. If you have a niche that you're hitting hard, be sure to do this. Cross-sells we've seen add up to 15% more sales to a given campaign. We've seen it anywhere from 6 to 15%. There are some times where the shirts just don't quite relate, that you're looking at like a 1% conversion rate, but that's basically traffic that you've already got on the site. Show them another shirt. Setting up your storefronts with multiple storefronts, as many items in these storefronts as you'd like now, excuse me, it's been proven to increase up to 10 and 15%. So by setting these up, again, if you're hammering a niche that you go back to time after time after time and you have all these winners, this is a great way to get some free money, some free Skrilla, as we call it at Teespring. So a couple other tips and tricks. Number one, kill your darlings. There are some people that just fall in love with the one design and they spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars because it's the best shirt ever. Raise your hand if you've done that or heard a story like that. Absolutely. Kill them. Sorry. That's it. Save your money. Cut your losses. There are some rules of thumb that basically say $30, 3 sales. We've heard anything. You know, Chris mentioned earlier he likes to spend $25 max. Everybody has their own, limit for what they're willing to spend.
Personally, I find this to be one of the harder things to get over at the very beginning, especially if you're trying to design something yourself, or like Vince said, if you can relate to the design in general. I found it to be one of the hardest things in the campaign launching process that finally I overcame.
Absolutely. The next one, find your prices. What I mean by this, just systemize it. We have some people that launch hundreds and hundreds of campaigns a week. It's a lot easier to scale out if you just have your prices set and you're just launching at a consistent price. And find a price that resonates and works. Some people say that you can sell at higher prices in certain niches, that you can sell different apparel, the American Apparel, for example, versus the Hanes at different prices. And although there is some truth to that, the way to maximize your profitability and get the most bang for your buck, just standardize your process and standardize your prices. Next, that's supposed to be niche. You want to research your niche. Scott, were you tinkering with my slideshow? No, you want to research your niche. And that's extremely important. Be able to research your niche and then connect with your community. Oftentimes, some people say they create this awesome shirt. We see it all the time in Teespring News and in Faberly Insider. You see it all the time. Hey, I got this great shirt. Who should I sell it to? Friends and family? I don't know. Standing on the street corner with an iPad, hope you got a Wi-Fi connection? I don't know. You want to research your niche first, find out what they're passionate about, and then create a design.
And as we've heard today, there's a lot of ways to do this. And one way that I find to work really well is to join communities that you can find that are really passionate already, because in those communities you'll find ideas that people throw around, and you can tell by the engagement alone, if it will work or if not, and it's always worth a test.
Absolutely, and we've talked about research a lot today. There's some great resources out there to help you in your research. But a couple of things here, I just want to get through these really quickly. Manage your time and learn to scale. Those are very, very, very important tips, and those are some of the higher level things. There are many different philosophies in how to scale, but managing your time, be diligent with it, set your processes. That should make it easier. This next one, change your URL variables. And I also want to talk about using promo codes. Promo codes are absolutely awesome. What better way to start off a campaign with some social proof than to message some past buyers with a free shipping promo code? We've seen that promo codes can increase conversions as high as 66% more than a URL without a promo code. 66% more conversions with a promo code than without. Now, that's based on an aggregate of data. These are different promo codes offering different types of discounts. But again, use those promo codes, mix and match, and for each niche, there's going to be something that's great. Changing the URL variable. So this is from one of the campaigns that we did a little while back. We gave this out to the community. And these are two different shirts, right? Obviously. One is the unisex tee, one is the ladies tee. When you land on the page, teespring.com/Skrilla, you get the shirt that is on your right. That is the unisex tee. As soon as you click on the ladies tee, you get a new URL. And that URL gives you 3 different variables. There's a PID, which is a product ID, a CID, which is a color ID, and there's an SID, which is really just short for side. And it says it's showing you the front. Now, for us, that's great because we can track it. For you, it's even more powerful because, again, if you copy this URL for the ladies tee and you plug that into an ad anywhere around the world, you share it with a friend, they're not going to land on the unisex tee. They're going to land on the ladies tee. And that's very powerful depending on who you're trying to target with your shirts. If you're trying to target men with one audience, you're trying to target t-shirts with one audience, you get the picture. You can do this with different colors, and again, like we talked about in the retargeting. We have some great resources out there. I strongly encourage everybody in here to check out university.teespring.com. We worked really hard in Teespring University, and that's somewhere you can check out some of the success stories that we've had. We can talk about how to find your audience, and there are some great advanced training videos that Scott can talk a little bit more about. He worked on very, very hard for those.
Yeah, this Teespring University is probably the most passionate project that I've worked on at Teespring. Yeah. I think the knowledge that we provided, thanks to our sellers and the people that we work with, it's such a powerful tool, and I suggest to bookmark this for everybody because even if you know it, it's so nice to read through this and refresh your information. It's so powerful. I really can't explain it unless you read it and watch the videos as well, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, and you know, we were talking about it earlier. You may be in business alone, but you're never in business alone in this community. Join the communities. We have Miss Bridget here, Bridget Sauer, who is our community manager. Round of applause for her. I think she does a fantastic job. Bridget is here, and you know, whether it's Teespring News or it's Family Insider, there are many communities out there where you can ask questions. There are genuinely people there willing to help you out. So check these out, and as we move forward, we're going to have more and more information and data for the community. So something that everybody wanted to talk about, diversifying your media buying, diversifying your traffic, right? There are a couple of tips that we have, and I have kind of tailored this for you know, a more digestible audience, just because as we spoke, there were a lot of people in here who I thought could definitely benefit from this. But before we go any further, there's a lot of information that's been thrown at everyone today, and I want to go back to this point. When you leave here, don't build yourself half bridges. And this is an analogy that I actually learned last week from Ryan Dice. Don't build yourself half a bridge. And what I mean by that is don't go home and start trying to master Pinterest, Google AdWords, retargeting, messaging your buyers, and everything all at once, and then never complete any projects. The way to succeed in this industry is to build one bridge at a time. And that's going to take you from point A to B. And then when you're at point B, you can choose which bridge you want to build, rather than trying to balance 6 different projects at a time. So the stuff that we presented earlier is going to be great for everybody. Obviously, Facebook is the first place you want to be when you're starting to pay for traffic to your campaign pages. But if you've mastered Facebook, this is where you can start tinkering with some of the other platforms. And 2 of the ones that I'll be talking about very, very briefly are Pinterest and Google AdWords. So first of all, Pinterest. These are all tips that I've learned from either speaking with one another or others in the industry, or that I've had presented to me, or that I've done research on. I can tell you right now, I have not tried any of these quite yet. However, there is a team that is working on this to try to figure out what is the best way to sell apparel on Pinterest and what type of traffic hacks we can throw in there. So first, you want to optimize your board covers with contrasting colors. And this is something that was spoken about a little bit earlier today. You can slap some white font on a black shirt and it sells well. It just works. So throw up white text with a black background when you're creating your boards on Pinterest, and it's going to draw the attention of the user much, much more. Number 2, in a sea of images, use words. And I truly mean that. You know, people are scrolling through Pinterest all the time, and I was checking it out the other day, and I noticed it myself. The pins that popped are the ones that had words in them, because you're inundated by all these pictures, and your mind kind of goes numb, and it's refreshing to have some text in there. So you don't necessarily need to have text on the shirt, but just put something in the pin that you're actually putting up that catches their eye and gets the blood flowing to a different part of the brain. Number 3, use exact match keywords in your boards. And what I mean by that is if you're trying to sell weightlifting, or you're trying to push traffic to a weightlifting pin, or workout, for example, use the word workout. Now, if you're trying to push to a workout plan, which may be less competitive and easier to rank number 1 on Pinterest as the top board, then put workout plan somewhere in your title. And if you want to do workout inspiration, the same thing. The biggest takeaway that I learned is that Pinterest is like a dumb Google. It really is. It's just an exact match SEO platform right now, where people are competing for clicks based on exactly what they type into that search bar. It's not going to optimize for relevancy. It's just not smart enough, and that's okay. In fact, if there are any SEO experts in here right now, you can take a nap, and you can go to Pinterest, and you can go crush it and have a top-ranking board by this time next week. It truly is that easy. So use the exact match keywords in your boards. Now, the other thing is take up real estate, but be wary of aspect ratios. This is one of the most controversial bits of information that I've read as I did my research. Some people say take up the entire board, which is like 750 pixels by like 3,500 pixels, something like that. Other people say keep a clean aspect ratio. You want to keep it 3:2. Test it out. The best I could say is test it out, both of which have data behind it to prove that they work. The idea is take up as much real estate as possible. They're more likely to click and engage with that pin. The other side is keep it aesthetically pleasing. People subconsciously are going to be clicking through. To me, both theories make sense. I would encourage you to test both of them out. Number 5, schedule your pins, right? It's just easier. Get some software. There are 2 pieces of software that I would recommend. One is a hover auto repin, and basically what that does is when you scroll over a piece of content, pops up a nice clean button that says repin. It encourages somebody to pin it in the same way. It's a hovering pin it. Yes, a hovering pin it app. If you Google that, there are a couple different options out there. Take a peek at those. But again, it's kind of like having a buy button that's visible. It's having a repin that's right there. Same way, software that schedules your pins makes it a lot easier for you to control your own schedule. You can set out an hour of your time, plan a week's worth of pins, track it throughout the week, as opposed to having to pin it in real time. Finally, as you go through, if you notice that you posted something that didn't resonate with your audience, remove your bad pins. The way that Pinterest right now is ranking, bad pins pull you down in the rankings, and good pins lift you up. If you have something that was repinned twice, and the other ones were repinned 20, 40, 100 times, get those ones out of there. It's the same way. Cut your darlings. Get those out of there, and you can rise to the top faster.
It's also very similar to monitoring your Facebook comments on your ads. If you have thousands of good comments and a couple bad ones, get rid of the couple bad ones. There's no need for those, and it's going to ruin or move away potential buyers.
Yeah. The other platform is Google, and I'm very, very excited about this. We just ran a case study. I guess we didn't run a case study. We were fortunate enough that somebody had a lot of success using Google AdWords, and they were fortunate enough to share their information with us. We're going to be releasing some of this information next week, hopefully on Monday, but I'm going to be able to give you guys an inside look at what we've learned from that. These are basically the 4 main takeaways that we've learned. So, number 1, keep your keyword list tight. In the same way you want to have your interest hyper-focused, very specific, keep your keyword list the exact same way. So you want to make sure that the people that are seeing this, the content, the shirt, whatever it is, it's relevant to them. And that makes sense. The next, develop a targeted ad copy. So with Google, you want to make sure that your title and your ad copy are hyper-specific and very relevant. And you're going to want to choose your words wisely, right? Because as you set this up, you're going to want to keyword optimize your Teespring campaign as well. What I mean by that, let's say I'm selling a shirt that just is a basketball shirt. I want to make sure that somewhere, maybe multiple times in my Teespring campaign, on the landing site where this ad is going to click through, it says basketball shirt, because Google is going to rank that higher, trusting the page that it's going to land on more than if you were to just have a soccer shirt, for example. So Google is smart enough, unlike Pinterest, to know where it's kind of sending its traffic. So match the keywords that you have in your Teespring description, title, URL to what you have in your ad. And then the final thing, set your bids according to your goals. And that's very important. As we experiment with Google, Google's obviously been around. There are probably some people in here who know a lot about Google AdWords. But from this perspective, this is something that's very, very new to us, and we're working to develop a platform and a couple of platforms that are going to diversify and work well with Google AdWords so you can diversify your traffic and build brands and different platforms. We're going to keep updating Teespring University. We have a great team that's around that. Yeah, absolutely.
I have not used Google AdWords at all, but the images that I see on Google AdWords don't seem that very big, so I don't understand how you can actually promote a shirt with an Inkjet design using those size images. That confuses me.
So most of the sales that we saw for the specific campaign were text-only ones. It's what you would see at the top if you were to type in, let's say, let's use a very, very broad example. You go to Expedia.com, and at the top, we're paying for that space to show Expedia.com. That's where we were seeing the sales actually come in, is when you type in basketball shirts, and right at the top, it just says basketball shirts. There's no image of the basketball shirt, but it's there. That's correct. A relevant catchy title. It can't be, the Wild West of clickbait. It needs to be a relevant catchy title, but that's exactly what it is. And this is something that's big for us, right? So the big difference that I see between Facebook and Google, when you see a shirt pop up on Facebook, you're not necessarily there to buy, but you like it, and it's there, and it's presented to you. When you go to Google and you type in basketball shirt, you know what the hell you're looking for. You're looking for a basketball shirt, right? So playing off of those two separate mentalities, I think, is going to be one of the most important things as we move forward and develop a platform optimal for Google AdWords. So one last bit of advice, right? This is by far the ethos that Scott and I have. and I've said it today, we mentioned it earlier, go take action. But this is our ethos. You want to move fast. You want to fail fast. You want to learn fast, and you're going to succeed sooner. Truly.
Notice the dollar signs for the S's.
We worked really hard on that. We actually had a graphic designer set those up. Shout out. No, but seriously, in business, this is the ethos that we have. And in building Teespring and Fably, there were some failures. But you know what? We moved quickly. We failed quickly. We learned from it. And that helped us to succeed sooner. So what now? Our goal is to continue to provide you the information and resources that you guys are going to need to succeed. We're going to continue to pioneer this industry, going after strategic partnerships that are going to allow you to sell different types of merchandise in various different capacities, while also working with some of these media buying platforms to get you lower ad costs. Raise your hand if you'd like to sell stuff with more revenue and lower ad costs. Absolutely. And that's what we're looking to do moving forward. So I'm really excited about the potential that we have. Obviously, the world is getting smaller. In the internet era, you know, there are people here from all over the world, people selling to people from all over the world, selling to countries that I've never been to, let alone heard of. And I think that speaks to the testament of e-commerce in the future of what we have in this room together. So thank you so much. We're going to move into a question and answer session right now. So if anybody has any last questions, yeah, that's it. So why doesn't everybody come on up and we'll do a quick Q&A. Thank you, guys.